Herman come forward and present this morning. With Resolution Services, thank you for coming and your patience. All right.
The blue light should be on. Press the
There we go. Have to push it hard enough.
There you go.
Good morning to the Budget Committee and the County Commissioners and staff. My name is Amy Herman, and I am here to represent Resolution Services. Our director, Lauren McNeil, is out of the state, so I'm here to represent our department and present the slides to you and answer questions. So you've got the packet in front of you, and I'll just go through the slides briefly. The first slide has our mission statement on it, and I'll go ahead and read that to you. Our mission is to enhance public safety, reduce the harmful impact of conflict, and strengthen family and community relationships through constructively resolving disputes and teaching conflict resolution skills. On the next slide, it's our budget overview. We've got a total department budget. Oops, I better push the button. Okay. Total department budget of $1,552,729. We have one division under the new MFR format that we're working with, Performance Clackamas. Our total general fund support is 38% of our budget, $587,869. Our major revenue resources are charges for service are 50% of our budget. Our general fund, as I mentioned, 38%, and the state revenues at about 5% of our budget. Major expenditures include personnel at 81%, cost allocations at 11%, and materials and services 8% of the budget. In terms of accomplishments that we've had in this past budget year, we developed a contract with the Department of Human Services at the state of Oregon to provide mediation services for open adoption cases. And there are 5 of our 7 mediators who are qualified to provide those specific services. Another accomplishment, we've implemented mandatory mediation in Clackamas County as of February 1st for family law mediation for divorcing couples. We've also developed a new skill development offering that we've tested out successfully in human health, housing, and human services, H3S. And that's to develop a cooperative cohort training for work groups where managers and supervisors of H3S have gone through and learned skills that have helped them to manage their staff and communicate with their staff and others, and also to help transfer those skills down to their staff so that they can use them with clients as well. So that's a new development that has also caught the interest of other departments, and it's a model that we can also, is portable. We can take it out and offer it to municipalities or other organizations in Clackamas County as well. On the next slide, in terms of fund balance, the only thing to bring your attention to on that slide is the use of our fund balance, which was $68,374. That's projected going forward. Our plan is to use that toward replacement of computer equipment, which we need to do annually, but aren't always able to, so we're constantly keeping up with our schedule to replace. There's the web-based case management system that we are looking into because of challenges of using several different platforms, and we'd like to be more efficient and have one platform that works for everything that we do. And there have been some minor personnel cost increases that would go toward. So significant issues and changes. We've reorganized our staffing positions based on our Management for Results program that we've been participating in. So we reclassified 3 positions last year to support 2 lines of business. Our lines of business now under Managing for Results our conflict resolution and skill development. In terms of that, we, under the conflict resolution line of business, we help people resolve specific disputes. Under the skill development line of business, we help people develop skills so that they can handle disputes in the future and have the capacity to do that themselves. There's also a deputy director position, which I am currently in now, and that was created to assist the department director and manage the day-to-day internal operations of the department. Another significant change, our family law mediation has increased demand for services, so we are seeing more people coming to our department and asking for services because the court is telling them they have to do that. So we're seeing more people come that might not have considered mediation before, but we have the opportunity to help them see that that option might be helpful to them as they work through their transition in their life. We're also experiencing more requests for skill development services, and that's useful because we're happy to know that people are interested in doing their own skill development around conflict resolution. We're able to do that both within the Clackamas County system and also out in the county as well with residents and organizations. And then another significant change I mentioned earlier is that we're researching these options for web-based case management systems. One of the opportunities we have with a web-based system is that we can access it regardless of where we are. We don't have to rely on the framework of the county technology system in order to get into that information. So if somebody's working on their laptop and they're at home and they're not able to be in the office, but they're still able to work, then they can access that information. The next slide, financial trends. The state funding sources are either flat or slightly reduced. That's kind of the same as it was last year. And we're always looking for our ways of increasing fee-for-service revenue. One of the examples of a revenue trend is that the Oregon Foreclosure Avoidance Program, when it first got started here in Oregon a couple of years ago, was generating quite a few cases for us, and we saw some growth in that area, and now we've seen the declines in that area. So we anticipate that we'll continue to offer those services, but we're not really able to anticipate exactly how much revenue that's going to bring in. So one of the things we do with that program is we have a handful of contractors that also work through our department, and some of our staff provide facilitation. Some of these contractors provide facilitation. So we can respond to the ups and downs in demand for services in that particular program. Let's see. And then the other revenue trend I would say is that because we're building out this line of business with skill development, we've typically offered things like a basic mediation training on an annual basis that brings in anywhere between 16 to 20 people every time we do that. It's a 5-day training, so it's a big commitment for people. But that's just a handful of people. So we want to be able to really build out on our skill development offerings to people around the county, residents themselves, and also continue to develop more relationships with departments within the county as well. Another expenditure trend, personnel costs increased 1.6%. And in terms of FTE, we had a change in FTE from 2016-17 to 2017-18 in our budget. And that was about 0.2. So in 16-17, it was 10.63. And in 17-18, it's going down to 10.343. We did have one staff person who requested a minor reduction in hours, so that may be partly that. And then we did not have any policy level proposals, so that next slide shows that information, and now we're at questions.
Well, I have a quick question, and that is, do you think that the family divorce mediation will pick up where the foreclosures are dropping off with helping bring in maybe fees for services in your volume? And what kind of volume do you think you may be seeing from that going
Well,
forward?
I don't know literally if the trend in divorces is going to go up or down,
But just your involvement might be in your department. You may see some more that
we
you
are
didn't have
definitely
otherwise,
seeing
right?
more requests for services because of the mandatory mediation that's been
Right.
installed. And one of the things about the mandatory mediation is that even though we've got more people coming in, we're not going to be charging them for the service until the second time they come. The judge has determined that they want mandatory mediation to be available to everybody, and so in order to do that, he's determined that he doesn't want the first joint session to be a fee for service. He wants that to be available to them. So we allow them to come in for their first session without charging them, and after that, we use this fee scale that was set up through the Board of County Commissioners, so we charge $100 an hour for our services. So there's a little bit of an adjustment going on with that.
So two, or one's a comment. One thing, I know somebody got a divorce that said that the process they went through, they left as friends rather than enemies. And it was all about sitting down and talking through the issues. And so the service that the court demands has been very beneficial to folks that have gone through it. My next question actually has to do with how we calculate salaries versus benefits. Let's say a department has 3 tier 1, 3 tier 2, 3 tier whatever, PERS people. Are we actually identifying those people and putting that in the budget specifically?
Yes, we are.
Okay, because I know there was one department where the benefits outweighed the salary, and that is how that would happen.
Right, and so we are very specific. The other thing is the lower the salary, the higher the percentage of benefits in proportion, because say health insurance is a standard package provision for all employees. So as a percentage of their salary, the lower salaried employees have a higher benefits component, higher benefits percentage.
Okay, that makes sense. Great, thank you, thank you.
Commissioner Humberson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can assure you at $100 an hour that I would learn how to get along with my wife very, very quickly. That's a heck of a motivator. But that said, and I think what you do has a great deal of social value. So
Thank you.
But my question is actually an economic question. Do you have any way of roughly monetizing what is saved as a result of your services, where people don't have a divorce or don't end up going to court over some other issue with their neighbor or whatever it might be? Do you have any sense of that?
Well, I think in the past I've had one related to police that we used, but I don't have it in front of me right now. It's hard to determine the savings when something doesn't occur.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part. We know what the costs are when things do occur. And one of the things that is important about the work that we do, especially in the family area, is that we're trying to help people focus on children. And when children's needs are met, even when families are separating and divorcing, if the children's needs are met, it can make it a lot easier for that child to move forward in a healthy way and have a good relationship with their parents if the parents are getting along themselves. And there's a lot of data, and our director, Lauren, is the one that has the really deep background in this kind of thing, so she'd be able to give you more examples than I can. But there are many, many research projects that have been done around the effects of trauma and disruption on children in one way or another. and that those kinds of experiences for kids early on can cause them to be not as successful as citizens when they get older. So that's generally a statement I can make. We can go back and try and find more information for you specifically that would help support the question.
I guess the basis of my question was that, you know, we're talking about moving from transactional basis to a more data-driven basis in terms of our evaluations. And I don't know how you would do that evaluation, but
Okay.
if there's a way of getting some sense of, you know, we invest a couple of $1 million in this process, but we save many millions of dollars in costs to people and taxpayers by doing this, might be good information to have. There was something we did earlier in our budget process where that was the case. I just don't recall what it was right now, but.
Okay, and in terms of the work that we're doing, especially this next year, as we move into our MFR process more completely, because we're not finished yet, we're gathering data from people to get self-report about their satisfaction, whether they've learned something new, the value to them in terms of the experience that they've had going through a mediation as opposed to being, in a court system. So we'll be gathering some data like that you'll have available to you next year that we don't have in the same form yet. So I think the Managing for Results design is going to help us do that more specifically for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think Tom,
They were
or were
first,
they,
actually,
all right. Ed, would you like to go next then?
Oh, I don't care. It can be Eric.
Let's do Ed next,
Just
and then Eric will.
One
move our way
question,
around.
I think it's just one question. Have you had any neighborhood disputes over marijuana issues that
You know, we
worked on?
thought we would, but we haven't,
They're coming.
yeah. Well, so I did talk to some people out here in the lobby one day when there was a hearing going on, and I just chatted with them as they were, picking up a sandwich. And what they were saying was they knew about mediation, but they weren't interested in coming to mediation for that particular issue at that particular point in time because they were talking about the law and how that was going to roll out. I think when it comes to the neighbor-to-neighbor kinds of disputes where somebody's living next door to a grow operation or there's somebody that's using marijuana next door to someone who doesn't use it, those are the kinds of things that are probably going to naturally come to us over time because it'll be like a barking dog issue or a property maintenance thing. You'll have a couple of people who are disagreeing about lifestyle, and those are perfectly suited for the kind of work we do with community mediation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll swing to Eric and come back over to the next.
Okay, I just have a couple questions. I'm looking at your performance measures that you put in the budget here, and I noticed that in several cases, the actual percentages went up, but then the estimate and the projected are going down, and then in all cases, they're the same. And I'm just going to suggest that as you develop your MFR, that you put in a percentage that causes you to reach rather than just maintain.
Yeah, I agree that would be a good goal for us. We've been looking at generally, because our services have kind of changed over time and there's a variety of things that we provide, we also want to be able to be more discreet about which kinds of cases are getting certain types of results. We know that small claims is going to get a lower percentage because some of those go to trial. The community cases tend to be higher in terms of the percentage of agreement, and then the family law cases, have a fairly good percentage of agreement as well. But we don't want to just look at agreement rates because that's not the only thing that happens when people come to mediation. Maybe they don't come to an agreement, but they come to an understanding and they get along better afterward, or they're able to, put an end to the dispute and move on. So there are lots of benefits that aren't measured or are difficult to measure. So those are things that we're really looking at right now in order to paint a picture that is meaningful for people like you guys when you're looking at what we do. So, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Tom, go ahead.
Okay, just quick question. It's still on performance measurements on page
Okay.
4 of the budget. Under community mediation in 14-15, you reached agreement in 91% of the cases and then it dropped to 81 and 80. Is there a reason for that, or was that just a good year?
Well, I think it was a good year, and the actual, as far as I can tell, was the 81. And so when we look forward, we're looking at what's typical across the state. And there are 17 mediation programs around the state of Oregon that offer community dispute resolution. And then our department also offers family law mediation, which not all of them do. But what we've noticed in terms of the community mediation across the state is that the mediation rates are pretty similar over time. So we are looking at that because it's a trend in the area that we practice in. It's also interesting that at some points in time, just as far as how many people come to us for mediation, depending on what's going on, we may get more calls one year and less calls another year. So we see a lot of fluctuation in the number of cases. And I remember when we had the year when 9/11 occurred, and the requests for mediation dropped. And I think everybody just shut down. Nobody wanted to, everybody was stunned. So there wasn't a lot of requests for services until people kind of got back to a new normal. So I think things can impact people generally in terms of what they're willing to participate in. And it takes a little bit of courage to step forward and participate in mediation. You have to be kind of ready to say, I'm going to take this risk. I'm going to put together my proposal and come in and talk to somebody that I'm not real comfortable sitting down next to. So, so I think those kinds of things can impact our caseload. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great.
Anything else?
Commissioner Fisher, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, I want to thank you for the services. They are excellent. Have had clients use them for many years. Just a comment that comes along with Eric's and with Tom's regarding performance measures. I was also looking at those and seeing where our results used to be higher and then they've dropped. And the target is less than some of the success we've experienced in the past. And I don't know the reason for that, especially around the domestic relations. But if you are going through and reviewing that, and especially if in domestic relations cases now mediation is mandatory, I would really like to see us set a target that that resolves conflicts and keeps litigation down. 'Cause
Yeah.
we all know that the financial and emotional cost of litigating those cases are very high.
Yeah. One of the things that's interesting right now, because of the mandatory mediation, we're getting people who don't really want to come to mediation. They just have to come. And before, our mediators were seeing people who were choosing to come. So there's been a big difference in just their, the type of people that they're dealing with, and as they sit down to provide service. So from a county employee perspective, we're having this conversation about how do we manage this so that people are really appreciating what they can do when they come in. And they may choose not to continue with mediation, but they have to at least attempt it. And so that's what the court's looking for, that they've come in and attempted mediation. They don't have to do it. So it's still voluntary, even though it's mandatory, if that makes any sense. So yes, I think we will be looking closely at those statistics as we continue to work through, because our model's changing. And that always changes your outcomes. So, we're looking closely at those kinds of things. We're interested in continuing to provide a high-quality product, and we want people to be able to benefit at whatever level they choose to participate. So, thank you.
Yeah, and that's a good point, where you're having less than willing participants, and how do you turn them into a willing participant for going forward for a good outcome for their personal specific situation.
Yeah.
The other thought is, since it's mandatory, but there's no compensation, do you think that's going to impact, how is it going to impact your budget? And are
Well,
there
it's-
mechanisms down the road that we may want to look at?
So there was a point in time
that.
where the department didn't charge for initial joint sessions. And then a few years ago, we started charging for joint sessions. So in the last couple of years, it appeared that we were generating, I think the number we came up with was like $60,000 a year from those joint sessions. That's the part that we think that we won't get because we're doing the joint session for free initially. But if those people are satisfied with the work that they're doing in their initial session, then they'll come back and they'll be able to, pay us for those services at that point in time. So those are the adjustments we're making. But we also know that we're doing more skill development work too. And sometimes these people will be interested in doing some of that as well. There's a family law clinic that we provide that people pay for to come in and talk over their own particular paperwork. We can't give legal advice in those situations, but we can help them with the paperwork. The other thing that I want to make sure I mention is our parent education training, and that occurs at least, I think it's like 3 times a month we provide that. That is mandatory for people going through divorce who have children, minor children. And that's an example where people will, maybe not really want to have to come to it, but they know they need to jump through that hoop for the court, and they come and they love it. So they're very, very happy that they participated in it, and they wouldn't have done it otherwise, maybe. So we've had very good success with that program in terms of getting people on board with the idea of really thinking about the kids first, practicing some good communication skills between them as they're going through divorce, and then continuing those good relationships as they're co-parenting in separate houses.
Yeah, Chair, Martha's due in the dunk tank in about 7 minutes. I think we need
Gotta
to,
go,
and I've
gotta
been
go.
practicing all weekend.
Well, I think, Eric, you have another final comment then before we go to the dunk tank.
I just have one question. Have you thought about in your free initial mediation service, in those cases where you have a divorce with children, have you considered also providing reading materials that maybe come from Focus on the Family and some of the other areas that have very good books that have been written about how to deal with what children are going through in that process? And so it gives the parents a better perspective of what to expect.
That's a good question. I believe that happens in the parent education training class, and I'm not familiar with exactly which materials they're referring people to, but yes, it's partly a resource and referral, and all the mediators that work with us also have really good access to information like that as well. So depending on what's going on with the clients themselves, there can be resource and referral information provided to them.
Yeah, I'm not so concerned about the mediators. I'm concerned about the parents getting that information.
Right, well, the mediators would be sharing it with the parents. Am I misunderstanding?
No, there are books you can just give them and say, here, read this. This is going to get really good, give you good information, and just let them take it, and it's free.
I believe there are pamphlets like that we hand out, but since I don't do family law mediation myself, I'm not one of the mediators that's passing those things out. I know I've seen them around the office, so I'm assuming that they're making some of them available, but we're not purchasing materials to then give away in the sessions, but certainly can direct people to those so that they can purchase their own. We just don't have a budget for that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you have a?
That's
Okay.
all. All right, thank you.
Well, we want to thank Amy Herman for coming and presenting
Great.
on the resolution services and what you provide to the community. We thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
All right.
Have fun with the dunk tank.
Thank you. With that, I think we're at a point where we will take a few minutes and adjourn for our lunch hour.